7:30, as promised, we crossed to Sandton, where our colleague Peter Ndoro is this morning at one of our TNA business breakfast in collaboration with the SABC. So today they taking the country forward, securing our communities the right to vote and choose their local representative. It's over to you, Peter, and your panel.
Right, thank you very much, Phahlane, and a very warm welcome to all of you at home, wherever you may be watching across South Africa, and indeed across the continent, because this signal is reaching you in about 40-something countries across the continent. So it's great to have you. Thank you so much today. Well, it's an important time in South Africa's history. Next week, the country will be once again going to the polls. This time, citizens will be asked to choose their local government for the next 5 years. It's being described as the most contested local elections, the most contested elections in the democratic era. And it's a kind of contestation that sadly, during the campaigning period and the period just before, we've seen a rise in a certain type of phenomena, some violence, intimidation, and sadly even some killings that's attributed to political activity. So the question, I guess, that a lot of us have is, come August the 3rd next week, will I be able to get up, go to my local voting place and vote safely and go home knowing that I'm safe and secure? You know, we've been hearing things like no-go areas. Well, the person and the people that are charged with making sure that these elections are safe and secure are my guests today, and I'm going to introduce them to you, and they'll reassure us on the elections and other policing issues. So a warm welcome to the Minister of Police, Nathi Nhleko. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, listeners and viewers, and to our guests here this morning.
Thank you so much. Next to you, we have the Acting National Police Commissioner, Phahlane. Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have you. It's good to chat to you again.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all.
And somebody perhaps that you might not have seen on these programs before is the Deputy Head of the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigations, otherwise to you and I, known as the Hawks, Lieutenant General Yolisa Matakata. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you as well.
Thank you, and good morning, Peter, to everyone.
All right, and don't forget, you at home can be very much a part of this conversation at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief, that's BIZ. You've got concerns, questions that you want answered, well, this is your opportunity. But let's get into this conversation. And let me start with you, Minister. Yesterday, you held a special press conference.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, for those that weren't able to see it or attend, what was your message in essence to the people of South Africa?
No, it would be remembered that we made an announcement sometime in June that we needed to respond in the most structured and systematic manner to incidences that are politically related and so on, particularly the question of killings and so forth. So it became quite important for us to begin to provide some report back to the nation about to what extent are we, as the South African Police Service, for an example, responding to that particular challenge. And so it goes. So essentially, it was a report back kind of a session that we had yesterday, dealing with, for an example, the question of the incidences that are so-called politically related, amongst which is the question of murders and attempted murders that have taken place and so forth. So you would also realize that we provided some progress insofar as arrests relating to murder cases and attempted murder cases. For instance, as of yesterday, we stood at about 7 arrests that had been made and people attending court for murder cases, and 2 cases relating to the issue of attempted murder. But that figure has also changed because last night we arrested 2 other suspects relating to the shooting and the killing of a councillor in Wanongoma, for an example, in KZN. So therefore, the total arrest now stands at 7, as we speak, stands at 9. as opposed to 7 as we reported yesterday. So basically that's what the session was about yesterday.
All right. We'll unpack some of those issues in a little bit more detail as the conversation unfolds. But National Commissioner, it's your responsibility to deploy all of your resources, both technical and people, to make sure that you're making progress in dealing with this. Now, it's one thing to make arrests, but sadly that's post the event. And I guess the issue for a lot of people is, are you coping and are you ready for anything that happens before it happens as well?
We are ready for the local government elections 2016. Our deployment is in place. We are not only going to be deploying between the 1st and the 3rd. We did pronounce that there is a pre-election phase which demanded from us to deploy. The weekend we are approaching will be the final push, I guess, from the political party's perspective in as far as campaigning is concerned. And from our end, it's going to be a test of our character as to what resources we have in place. And we are confident that this election will be safe and secure. And we work together with our counterparts within the security cluster. We have mobilized the resources, and the South African Police Service will lead this process accordingly.
All right. Lieutenant General, let me turn to you. Part of this is intelligence gathering and making sure that you're ahead of the curve in terms of some of the activities that happen. Are you confident that you're gaining enough intelligence so that we don't have surprises? We wake up one morning and we find this has happened, or crowds have gathered and this is going on. Are you happy with the state of intelligence gathering?
Thank you, Peter. As the directorate, we're working with all the role players within the organization, that is the South African Police Service, the intelligence community as well. Therefore, we are working with them. They provide intelligence that is gathered by all the intelligence community to us. And for us, it's important that we link that information or intelligence to evidence, that we can link any perpetrators to the crimes that have been committed. Thanks.
Okay. Minister, one of the things that we've been hearing, and we're scared that on the 3rd of August, it's going to be there as well. Some people are saying these are no-go areas for certain people, certain political parties, that you cannot come here, you will not be allowed to vote. Are you sure that there will be no such thing on August the 3rd, that there's be no-go areas?
No, there wouldn't be. There wouldn't be, precisely because our point of emphasis also is that we have got to secure the environment to such an extent that individual and collective members of our communities are able to exercise their constitutional right, and that is to vote. And therefore, and I think that's the issue that also earlier on the acting national commissioner here was speaking to, the question of the need on our side as a focal point to scale up our operations, for an example, to ensure that you don't have the so-called no-go areas and so it goes. But let me also just briefly reflect on, we have 22,612 voting districts in South Africa. Up until June, you had 1,000 voting districts classified as high-risk sort of areas, for an example. But as we speak, we are now standing at 650 high-risk, so-called high-risk areas, the hotspots and so forth. So what does that tell you? It tells you that because of our operations on a consistent kind of basis, we've been able to reduce the number of hotspot areas, for an example, to 650. And of course, we still have got to do more to try and deal with just that 650, so that indeed people are free to go to the polls and so on, and so it goes. So I'm quite confident that we will be able to do our bit from the policing end of things. But as we had said also yesterday, that for the overall sort of success in the country, you require all stakeholders and role players to play their active sort of a participatory role in ensuring that the elections, firstly, are peaceful, and secondly, they are free and fair as well, amongst other things. And that requires all the stakeholders in the form of political formations, social formations of sorts and so on, and individual members of our citizenry, that we need to work towards that particular goal.
Okay. National Commissioner, some people might say that you're not succeeding in keeping our politicians, our candidates safe. This task team was set up, June, and yet somebody was killed just the other day. That must mean something is not working.
The success of the police is highly dependent on the cooperation and collaboration with our communities. Those people that get killed are killed by people who come from the communities where we find ourselves in. And the fact that someone has been killed will not necessarily mean that the police are not effective, because it is unthinkable that you will find a police person before each and every house. We must be working together with our communities. Our deployment is in place. The minister just alluded to the decrease in as far as the high-risk areas, which means the police has been effective through their operations in following up on intelligence in a number of these areas. The arrests, 9 that the minister referred to, those people did not come walking to the police and handing themselves over. It's investigation that was conducted. And this talks to what we said we are going to be doing, thorough investigations to allow us to ensure that the perpetrators of crimes are brought to book, and allow us an opportunity to process the cases through the criminal justice system. We did say that our reliance is more on proactive policing, on visible policing, but where, for example, we were unable to take away the opportunities to commit for crime to be committed, we will do thorough investigation, and we are confident that we are doing that which is demanded of us in ensuring that policing is effective.
Lieutenant General, do we know who is committing these crimes? Watching the press conference yesterday, I got a sense that you're feeling that this kind of crime, there are people who are either highly trained or we might even call assassins that are perpetrating this crime. Is that what you're seeing? Is there a trend that this is quite organized, that this isn't just random?
Peter, what I can say is that with those incidents, specifically your murders and attempted murders, the investigation will reveal eventually who are behind those incidents. But as alluded earlier by the Acting National Commissioner, the people obviously that are murdered mostly are people who were murdered within their space, a confined space, outside their yards and homes. So it's people who have probably are trained in how they know how to assassinate without being detected easily. And also opportunities that might be there that no witnesses. So eventually, I think those issues will be revealed as the investigations are still taking place in most of these incidents.
Okay. Minister, you are also a politician.
I don't know. I hear that I am a politician, yes.
So the question is, what is going on? Why are we seeing violence in this way? I mean, you know, this is a free democratic country, and if anybody has a grievance, there are ways to express those. Why are we seeing this upsurge in violence, and why KwaZulu-Natal, for example?
Look, I was asked more or less a similar question yesterday, and I was saying, look, it's a different sort of study that would have to be conducted on the why question, for an example, and specifically why KZN, because there could be a number of other dynamics and factors that are at play, whether they are social and economic and or political for that matter. But that's a different sort of study all in all. my view is that I think we also do need to basically understand and appreciate the fact that these are some of the developmental challenges within our society. And it is a matter that as society we do need to confront the levels of violence generally in our society, whether is it politically related or whether is it about just petty crimes. The fact that all over the world people do steal cell phones, I'm just making an example, and they snatch handbags and so forth. But in the South African context, somebody snatches away your Pep Store 200 rands phone, and kills you, and take a human life. Now, there is a pattern of violence accompanied by some of hostility that I think we do need to confront. And it's just simply not narrowly a policing kind of issue. It's a broader socio-political kind of problem that has got to be effectively addressed. All of us as stakeholders, for an example, how do we ensure that we expunge the violent sort of culture in our makeup as society, for an example. Or of course, it has got its own historical basis and background in terms of where it comes from, how it has evolved over the centuries and decades, and so it goes. But the fact of the matter is that regardless of our background, we need to work towards a creation of an overall peaceful environment as South Africans.
All right. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to start getting your questions via Twitter at Morning Live SABC, hashtag TNA BizBrief. And also, we have an audience here in Woodmead, just north of Johannesburg, where we'll also explore some of the issues. And it's not just the elections. Police have to deal with quite a number of issues. And one of those is capacity. And we'll be chatting about new cadets that are coming through the system as well, and how that's going to change the game in terms of feeling more safe and secure wherever you may be. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this.